Welcome back. We're pulling back the curtain on a $250 million media takeover deal with Bari Weiss, a Columbia Zionist turned CBS rainmaker. This is not an accident.
And let's run it.
Bari Weiss, born in 1984 over in Pittsburgh. She grew up in a tight Jewish community, deeply connected to Israel. She actually found Columbians for Academic Freedom, which targeted professors critical of Israel. That move plugged her straight into pro-Israel donor networks. Now, she lands a summer fellowship at the Shalom Center in Jerusalem, which was actually bankrolled by Sheldon Adelson. You've heard this name Adelson being thrown around here and there. That's who it is. Now, this connects with Roger Hertog's Fellowship for Pro-Israel Writers. From day one, Bari wasn't just an activist. She was plugged into the donor machine. Now fast forward, Weiss rises through the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and who calls it out? Tucker Carlson. Watch this.
You had a moment with Bari Weiss on your show that went everywhere. I saw a clip of it. I never saw the show itself, but she was going on about, she was posing as one thing, and then you pressed her. You're like, well, hold on a second. What do you mean by that? You just attacked somebody. And she had no idea what she was talking about. And it became really clear to me watching it. That completely changed my view of Bari Weiss forever. I was like, oh, she's a fraud, actually. This person's not honest at all. Like, she has a very specific agenda. That's all she cares about. The rest of this stuff is just a kind of sleight of hand maneuver.
You're talking about the thing with Tulsi Gabbard?
That's correct.
Yeah, she called her a toady, and she didn't know what that meant.
Well, but she had no idea. Like, Tulsi Gabbard had straight outside the lines on some Syria or something. And Bari Weiss was, going through the files in her head, like, what does she have to believe? And she was aware that, Tulsi Gabbard had somehow violated that in a way that no one's willing to say, like, in detail to fully articulate. What did Tulsi Gabbard do wrong? No one will tell you. She's just bad.
Yeah.
And then what that revealed about Bari Weiss is she's completely dishonest. Like, she's a liar, actually. You can't, by the way, if you attack somebody, particularly personally, and can't explain why you're attacking the person, like, that's not acceptable. You're a dishonest person if you can't explain why.
I think it's a common thing that people do in private, and they get accustomed to speak. Like, we're talking like we're talking in private. We're just two people talking.
Right.
So people get accustomed to saying things without being able to back them up. Like, oh, he's a vaccine denier.
Well, I've done a ton of that in my life.
Yeah, I have as well.
Because I'm an asshole. So it's like, I just don't like that person. Okay.
I have as well. But what I'm saying is, I don't know how much time Bari Weiss had spent doing podcasts before that.
Well, she'd spent, look, I'm just saying, like,
but I think
it's important to be honest about what your agenda is.
I think she is honest. I think she is honest, and I really like her.
Yeah.
I like talking to her.
Against,
she's a very intelligent
person.
Not
against her personally.
I just think that was a mistake. And I think you're allowed to do that and hopefully learn from that. And don't do that anymore. Don't say a thing that you and I've done that. I've definitely done that. I've said a thing and I wasn't really exactly sure what I was talking about.
Oh my gosh, I do that every day. Yeah. And I may have just done it with Bari Weiss. So let me be a lot more specific about what I mean. If your agenda is neocon politics, which is her agenda, just say so. Don't pretend to be a defender of free speech as a principle, which is what she does.
How is she a defender of neocon politics?
Bari Weiss?
Yeah, like what specifically?
Well, anyone, including me and Tulsi Gabbard, who thinks that America shouldn't be funding wars that don't help America, she will attack as a traitor to America or whatever it takes. And so, no, that's her main interest, which is fine. And by the way, I actually have friends who I disagree with really strongly on this question who believe in neocon politics. Doesn't mean they're terrible people or I hate them or I'm not friends. I'm still friends with them. But they're very direct about it. This is what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. Right. I really care about bird hunting and fly fishing or whatever. You don't. That's totally cool. But be honest about it. So if your job is to defend the right of free people to say what they really believe, then go ahead and defend it.
Tucker nails it. This isn't journalism. It's a conveyor belt of campus activism, think tanks, and mainstream newsrooms. It's all tied together by the same donor money that we've been covering on this channel. So let's break down her worldview. We're gonna watch it and have her explain it. But in her mind, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are basically the same thing. So she's written whole books and built her entire branding off of this argument. Bari has said that being against the existence of Israel or the Jewish state is just a modern mask for hating Jews. So from her perspective, Zionism is survival. Now, she'll tell you that Jews were persecuted for centuries, stateless for 2,000 years, and after the Holocaust, they needed one place to actually be in the world to survive and be safe. So that was Israel. For Bari, questioning the project's questioning that equals questioning Jewish survival itself. Now, here's where it gets heavy. Weiss takes that definition of anti-Semitism and applies it into politics and media. When Ilhan Omar talked about AIPAC and lobbying money, Bari called it anti-Semitism. When Jeremy Corbyn in the UK supported Palestinian rights, she called that labor was consumed by anti-Semitism. When activists chant against Israel on campus, Bari calls it hate speech and anti-Semitism. So in her framing, anti-Semitism isn't just swastikas and Nazi marches. Anti-Semitism is also opposing Zionism. It's boycotting Israel. It's even criticizing the lobby. So this is the line that matters and where Bari Weiss turns a political debate into a moral one. She says, you're not just criticizing a country, you're attacking Jewish survival.
When people look different from you, if you are an Asian person who is racist against black people, or a black person who's racist against white people, or if someone's different than you, that at least racism is always disgusting. It's always horrific and ignorant, but at least I can kind of see how you could be tricked into thinking that way. I don't understand anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism is not just a normal bigotry.
Right.
It's a conspiracy theory. It's a way of understanding and making sense of the world, especially in times of economic and social upheaval. The reason that anti-Semitism is resurgent right now is because, I'm not justifying it, but it's because we're in, going back to our earlier conversation, a time where people are disoriented, they're disaffected, they're confused, they're shortchanged, and they're looking for an easy answer.
So they're looking for a scapegoat.
Yes.
But there's no lines that point to Jews. This is what's so confusing to me. It's like there's no clear thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, you have to wrap your mind around the idea, which is a huge, huge, huge idea, that anti-Semitism is built into the scaffolding of Western civilization. Period. It's never going away. It's like, think about it like an intellectual disease that's built into the foundations of the civilization that we live in. And in times where that civilization or a given society is healthy, anti-Semitism, along with xenophobia and racism and all kinds of other bigotry, are sort of kept in check. And when the society becomes unhealthy, and we're living in a deeply unhealthy society in many different ways right now, anti-Semitism is something that people reach for, right? It's like, if you want to understand like the Nazi rise to power, you kind of can't understand it without looking to the fact that there was, an incredible economic depression in Germany and there was a scapegoat. And if you look, it's not to justify it, but if you look throughout history, right, look at the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague came because of rats to the European continent that were brought on ships from Crimea. But people did not at the time, they looked, who did they blame? They blamed the Jews. The Jews were dying at a lesser rate than their non-Jewish neighbors, probably because of religious rituals that Jews have, like washing your hands before you break bread and say a blessing, dunking in the ritual bath before the Sabbath, and all of these other things that probably kept them more protected against the plague than their neighbors. But rather than looking into it and saying, oh, maybe they're doing something right and something we should mimic, their neighbors said, kill the Jews, throw the Jews down the well. And it led to, massive pogroms, killing Jews and the claim was that the Jews literally poisoned the drinking water throughout Europe. So it's this irrational hatred, but it is so, so deep because it goes back to the most important myth that Western civilization is built on, and that is the Christian story.
Jewish people are...
Does that make any sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. But the fact that it still continues doesn't make any sense.
The reason it's very hard to talk about this is because it's so enormous. It's like accepting the fact that it's like you have to accept as a foundational principle that this is baked into the world that we live in. And we're never going to cure it, and it's never going to go completely away. The best thing that we can do is build healthy cultures that protect certain virtues, like liberty, like freedom of the individual, like religious liberty, all the it's not a coincidence that America's been so good for the Jews. It's because so many of the ideas that protect minorities and religious minorities, like Jews, were sort of, for all of the founders' faults, right? And they had many, including owning people. But, George Washington, he writes this letter to the first Jewish community of this country in Rhode Island. And he says something that was then incredibly radical, which is pathetic that it was. But he says, Jews in America are not just going to be tolerated. They're going to possess the same citizenship as everyone else. That at the time was a radical departure from history. In the Islamic world, the Jews had always lived as dhimmis, as second-class citizens. And in the Christian world, it was worse. I mean, what people forget, right, is like right now radical Islam, when it comes to the religions, is the greatest threat to Jews. But for most of its history, Islam was much more tolerant of Jews than Christianity was, which is something that's kind of like has gotten lost to history.
Yes.
I think about that a lot, with my book, with the case of someone like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. It's like Ilhan Omar is the subject of bigotry, not least from the President of the United States. And yet Ilhan Omar herself has said some things about Jews and Israel that are themselves bigoted. Both things are true at once. And yet we're living in a society where it seems like you can only choose one of those two sides.
Yes, a binary society as opposed to a nuanced one. That's what's weird about today. It's like we're dealing with the same amount of intelligent people, but they seem to be shackled in their ability to express themselves honestly.
And so what are they scared of, right?
Repercussions.
Right, and because those are real, right? You look at someone, I think that one thing that's overlooked in this, when we talk about cancel culture, right, and the social ostracism and the actual firings that can happen when you break with one another orthodoxy, is that the people who are inoculated from it are people that are already extremely successful and can take the risk.
See, that's a classic move right there, where any critique of Israel becomes anti-Semitism. I mean, it's just crazy, man. And then what happens next? Politicians bend the knee. AIPAC writes the checks, and suddenly $90 million gets poured into primaries to crush critics. I mean, that's not protecting Jewish people. That's protecting foreign policy interests. So now Bari Weiss takes shots at right-leaning conservatives and political commentators and the likes of Tucker Carlson. Let's see what she's got to say. This was on the Young Turks 6 months ago. Let's see what she says on the Free Press here on YouTube.
Same story we just lived through on the other side. As the far right, and not the way cable defines it, which includes almost everyone in this room today, but as the real far right devours what remains of the center right. Because the stakes are life and death, the normal rules of the game need to be suspended. They say that those who don't go along with that are squishes or traitors, or they were secret leftists all along. Or they accuse them of being conservative or Republican in name only, which is a version of the false consciousness that Marxists are so fond of telling people that they suffer from. They say it's not enough to return to normal or renew our old values, because that's not an option. Instead, what they say is that it's time to give the other side a taste of their own medicine. They say, we were treated cruelly, and so cruelty is the only response. Just as the left defaced and desecrated statues of Churchill.
She went on to criticize Tucker Carlson in her speech. Let's give that a watch.
Just as the left defaced and desecrated statues of Churchill, the vandals on the right desecrate his name and his memory. While the left, long sympathetic with Stalin, today sympathizes with modern-day Nazis in the form of Hamas, the new right eulogizes the original ones. And in rehabilitating Hitler, and I'm not exaggerating, they don't just demonize Jews, but they demonize the West itself.
I'm gonna let you take this one, Cenk.
Yeah, there we go. When they demonize it, poor victim Israel, they demonize all of the West. So you in Kansas, even though it looks like you giving $300 billion to Israel, is a giant waste of your money. No, Israel is the bulk of Western values. The West loves to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing. And if anyone doesn't voluntarily give up their land to Israel, the West values is to slaughter them endlessly. Wait, you got a little derailed there, Bari. That doesn't have anything to do with what you were talking about before, which I liked. So I knew she was going to go there when she started using the word values, because American values then morphs into Western values. And the trick of the Israeli supporters is the West is comprised of America and Israel. That's it. Maybe a little bit of Europe, but I don't like their socialist policies. I like their, some how they look. Their socialist policies. No, so just Israel and America, and not really America. Just give everything to Israel, okay?
I'm just being blessed. Oh my God, it's crazy. Do you remember Bari Weiss? Much ado was made about this New York Times reporter who was quitting morally. Yeah, well, Bari Weiss does not love me. I've told you before, she's been celebrating me she had an article ready, honestly. She was celebrating me leaving the Daily Wire because how dare I talk about Emmanuel Macron's husband? How dare you? Bari Weiss got triggered, and I should say she actually made her wife, Nellie Bowles, write a piece on me that went out as a newsletter because she was so triggered by the idea that I'm questioning World War II narratives. Bari is a pro-Israel stan. I actually read online, I'm not sure if it's entirely true, that she's a dual citizen. And so, Bari, I'm totally cool. You're having children. Send your children to go die for Israel. That's cool. Go move to Israel. You and your wife should move to Israel. And you can live in that climate. But trying to convince the rest of us that dying overseas in wars while we look around and we see that everything in America is on the decline, it's just not cutting it anymore.
Terrorism, theme parks, boom, boom, bridge, bad. And what we have to do is shoot toddler in his face. Thank you, 303. Thank you very much, that was very good. And 300 million for you. Anything else you'd like? That's good, thank you so much. Those are the arguments they make at the Free Press. They don't even pretend, by the way. And God bless them, but they don't even pretend like there is no intellectual heft to any of the arguments. They're like, if Iran's not bombed, they're going to rape your mother.
My own feeling on it when I saw was it's like Bari's doing well with the Free Press. She's got a lot of investors who she's doing a good job for, and they'll probably take a hefty amount of that money. But to me, this feels like somebody comes up to you and says, I've got this beautiful ship I'd love for you to captain. It's absolutely gorgeous. You might even call it unsinkable. It's going to set sail on the Atlantic. We're going to head north into the Arctic area. There may be a couple of icebergs. I'm sure you'll be fine. Here's the wheel. Like, why would you go into mainstream media right now? Like, it's dead. It's dying. It absolutely is on track for the iceberg. I just don't understand the allure. And I really don't understand the allure to go to a television network, which is not Bari's background at all. And it's for me, and I really love Bari and Nellie too, I worried they're going to eat her alive because CBS is among the worst when it comes to being insular. Like, you have to be raised at CBS to be respected by the CBS people. Ask Katie Couric if you don't believe me. Ask Catherine Herridge if you don't believe me. Whatever you think of Katie Couric, within that circle, she would certainly be considered one of the most storied, established journalists of modern times. And they hated her guts that she didn't rise up within CBS and she didn't come from the evening news and all that crap. There's no way they're going to respect somebody who did a stint at the Journal and the Times and then went off into independent media as a television editorial boss. And I'm sorry, but they're also not going to respect somebody who's young and a woman because CBS is not built that way. Again, ask Katie Couric, ask Catherine Herridge. I've watched it happen time after time. So I just don't get the allure. Like, are we on an independent media train where we're like, creating and building something new that matters and is really going to replace these dinosaurs? Or are we going back into the dinosaurs to try to somehow put the paddles on them and continue to ask for a charge when the patient has long since expired?
Man, I gotta say, Megyn Kelly brings up a really good point, because when Bari Weiss goes into CBS and starts running operations, don't you think all the people that have been working there for all of this time are gonna have a problem with that? She's gonna be trying to push a pro-Israel, pro-Zionist agenda, and not everyone's gonna identify with that. Maybe some, but now we know CBS is bought out. So what's the move now? Are they going to be making decisions editorial wise and cutting out negative news against Israel? Most likely. So I guess we'll see how that churns out. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Hit one of these playlists or videos to get a little bit more of the Dankster. I appreciate you stopping by. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.
They call me Dankster.